it. This whole thing is the most repulsive, disgusting thing happening, and the American people are the ones writing the check. And I absolutely hate everybody here that is doing this. I mean, I seriously hate them for doing this to the American people and paying for the murder and slaughter of people in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin has not said he wants to go march across Europe and take Europe. And the reality is Ukraine is not even a NATO member nation. But if you want to know something, Lloyd Austin and the others here, more than anything, want to send your uncles, your cousins, and your sons and daughters to the front lines in Ukraine, because that is the only country that for some weird, sick, and evil reason that they care about.
Marjorie Taylor Greene hates everybody. It's not really news considering how much she goes on TV to yell about someone else that isn't following through on her self-serving conspiracy theories that might help her get closer to her heroes, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Former Republican star Liz Cheney pointed it out too when she posted this. Once again, Moscow Marge is busy deploying her Kremlin talking points. Is she a useful idiot, or is she intentionally spreading Putin's lies? Either way, it's pathetic and un-American. She's not the only one calling it out. Remember, Republican Ken Buck didn't pull any punches when talking about Greene's campaign to downplay the Russian invasion too?
Mike Johnson, the speaker, is on the right side of history, and Marjorie is on the wrong side of history. We know that Russia is propagating these false statements, narratives about what's going on in Ukraine. We know that she is getting her talking points from Russia, and we know that they're false. My experience with Marjorie is people have talked to her about not filing articles of impeachment on President Biden before he was sworn into office, on not filing articles of impeachment that were groundless on other individuals in the Biden administration. And she was never moved by that. She was always focused on her social media account. And Moscow Marjorie is focused now on this Ukraine issue and getting her talking points from the Kremlin and making sure that she is popular and she is getting a lot of coverage.
The patience that some of her colleagues have had for her over the past few years is running thin, apparently, especially as she has a new reason to oust their replacement speaker just about every other week. She's been pulling her hair out over the Ukraine funding, and since he now negotiated to get a version of the FISA bill passed, his job is on the chopping block again. But in her argument to eliminate FISA, she forgot to make it seem like she cares about Americans that are concerned about being spied on without a warrant. You'll never guess who she's actually hoping to protect instead.
The FISA bill, and did you talk to anyone?
Well, I'm not a big fan of FISA. I looked at it and I studied it, and I know it probably better than anybody. You know, they spied on my campaign. You do know that, right? And they did lots of other bad things. I'm not a big fan of FISA.
Side note, in his declaration about being spied on, Trump loves to tell his minions that he knows everything about anything, so that no matter what the topic is, he can form it to fit his needs, knowing that his supporters will refuse to think about it themselves at all. But actually, in reality, he doesn't know much about anything. He recently showed off his deep knowledge of the history of the Civil War, specifically the Battle of Gettysburg, and some made-up quote from Robert E. Lee.
Where our Union was saved by the immortal heroes at Gettysburg. Gettysburg, what an unbelievable battle that was, the Battle of Gettysburg. What an unbelievable, I mean, it was so much and so interesting and so vicious and horrible and so beautiful in so many different ways. It represented such a big portion of the success of this country. Gettysburg, wow. I go to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania to look and to watch. And the statement of Robert E. Lee, who's no longer in favor. Did you ever notice that? No longer in favor. Never fight uphill, me boys. Never fight uphill. They were fighting uphill. He said, wow, that was a big mistake. He lost his great general. And they were fighting, never fight uphill, me boys, but it was too late.
At least this Thanksgiving, you'll know where your crazy uncle got the story of Robert E. Lee telling his army, never fight uphill, me boys. But anyway, back to his opposition to FISA. He made sure that the Republicans he controls in Congress knew where he stood on FISA by following up his demands with this post. Kill FISA. It was illegally used against me and many others. They spied on my campaign. And without missing a beat, rank-and-file Republicans shamelessly admitted to making legislative decisions simply to please him.
Donald Trump is also for blocking this. How big a role did that play in the position of certain members in the House?
I think that in general, in discussing it amongst each other, and then also to knowing for a fact that this was the tool that really the Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Biden administrations used to spy on this president, we ensured that, that can't happen again. But I will say that I know, and I'm hearing that under the new conversations that we've had and negotiations that I believe, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the president, but I believe that he will be satisfied.
So after another embarrassing failure that was fueled by his own party, Speaker Johnson found a way to get something passed in the House, but he can't escape the threats.
It was Speaker Johnson was the final vote. He was the one that caused the warrant amendment to fail. And I think that's going to tell a lot of people what I've been saying is true. So basically, what's the difference in Speaker Pelosi and Speaker Johnson? And there's none.
Now, this might be where Mike Johnson's head might be spinning as he looks to please both Trump and Greene. Trump's demands to kill FISA because it exposed his campaign's communications with Russian officials looking to interfere looked like he sided with Marge, but he quickly invited her number one enemy to Mar-a-Lago and then defended him.
It's not an easy situation for any speaker. I think he's doing a very good job. He's doing about as good as you're going to do, and I'm sure that Marjorie understands that.
Did you speak with President Trump privately about what Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing?
I spent hours with the president on Friday. He and I talk frequently, many times, usually in a week. We have a long relationship. He's 100% with me, and he said, we'll get this job done. That's a distraction. What Marjorie's done with the motion to vacate is not helpful for our party, for our mission to save the country, because if we don't grow the House majority, keep the House majority, win the Senate, and win back the White House for President Trump, we're going to lose the republic.
Trump's normal approach of keeping even his biggest enablers guessing about what they need to do and say next to continue to please him mostly happened because he generally doesn't know what he's talking about or he's lying about it for some instant gratification. He has a back and forth record on where he stands on FISA bills already.
The other issue, you may recall, Brett, the president once before, President Trump tweeted out that we should oppose reauthorization because he watched a legal commentator who used to be on Fox complain about FISA. Pompeo had to go get in the car and drive over there and flip the president's position. So he sent out another tweet before we voted. I don't hear his former national security advisors opposing reauthorization. So I hear him doing it, but I don't hear the people that he put in charge of keeping our country safe opposed to this reauthorization.
President Trump, his administration, and the White House supported the last reauthorization even after the challenges with FISA were revealed. And by the way, it's worth noting, none of the authorities we're talking about today, which are about, as John pointed out, about the surveillance of foreigners located overseas, have anything to do with any surveillance of Americans in the United States at all.
Unless they're talking to somebody overseas that is being surveilled.
Exactly right. President Trump is wrong about whether this was used as a surveillance campaign. It wasn't. In fact, to the contrary, his administration, every major official, Mike Pompeo, Robert O'Brien, DNI John Ratcliffe, all support the reauthorizations, as do the 9/11 families.
Again, the former president isn't arguing against surveillance for the sake of regular Americans that want their privacy protected, but because he's got beef with the process uncovering things about his foreign dealings with Russia, which are still being adopted by that same speaker that Marjorie Taylor Greene must be worried about being Trump's and Putin's favorite lapdog.
This morning, the speaker sent out a statement with this kind of framing. He says the revisions of the surveillance measure, quote, would stop the FBI's abuses of FISA's Section 702 inquiries and prevent another phony Russia hoax investigation by the FBI. They still cannot stop making these shameless concessions to Trump.